can I get in? Board docs.
May I have a motion to return the regular board meeting to public session, please? Mr. Lemay, thank you. Mr. Borenstein, second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. I call the regular board meeting to order. All board members are present. There is a live stream of our meeting happening on YouTube, on our district YouTube channel. Mr. Borenstein, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Mrs. Van Sice, thank you. Mr. Lemay, second. All in favor? Seeing all hands up, motion carries unanimously. All right, we are moving on to recognition. Dr. McKenna, I turn it over to you for board recognition of our schools.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. We have some excellent recognitions tonight. This evening, we continue with our school spotlight, highlighting the great work that goes on within our classrooms. This month, our school spotlight focuses on Maple West Elementary and community building. Here is a look at community building at Maple West.
You are getting so good at looking at graphs and analyzing them like real mathematicians. Give yourselves a pat on the back.
Remote teaching, honestly, it's quite a challenge to try and make sure that students have as best an experience as possible. We really want to make sure that we have a full experience for our remote students. And one of the ways to do that is to talk to the teachers who are teaching them. So we meet regularly with all of the remote teachers to talk about how things are going, to specifically talk about making sure that the students are engaged in what we're doing here at Maple West.
It's not easy for either end of the screen, the teacher or the student. The other remote teachers, we really lean on each other and support each other. We're meeting on a weekly basis. We were kind of brainstorming ideas leading up to school beginning. And even once school did begin, we were kind of talking about troubles we were having. We were trying to help each other out. The community here at Maple West has been amazing. I think what's been really great is every Wednesday we have a supply pickup. So those kids are getting the same materials and supplies and books that the kids here in the hybrid program are getting. Just making sure that they feel a sense of community and making sure that they know that what they're doing at home is the same thing the kids are doing here. And we're just doing it in a different way.
We wanted to make sure that all opportunities were available to all students, no matter which way that they were learning. Whether it's pictures for the yearbook, for spring pictures, whether it's spirit days, whether it's video announcements, anything that we do, we make sure that all students have an opportunity to participate. Kids need to be able to belong. They need to feel like they're welcome. They need to feel that they have a safe place to go to learn. I mean, adults, we fully know that if we go to a place where we feel valued, we feel safe, we feel engaged, that we're going to be able to be successful there. And we just want our kids to be successful.
Close your eyes for a second. And I want you to imagine that you are in the world of Frog and Toad.
I think it's huge, especially in the situation that we're in with just our little remote class, just even having that sense of community, that they're willing to share with each other, talk to each other, share things that they're excited about, things that they're worried about, and have that safe space still within the remote class. And that really, I think, has helped a lot with mental health with them and also just that sense of community.
It's really nice to not feel like in-person or hybrid has their own thing going on and then virtual is just off to the side. Like, we've really enjoyed being able to do as many of the normal activities as we can. We're just really grateful at all of the work, which I'm sure I only know a fraction of, that's being done behind the scenes at Maple West. I know this year is almost impossible for them, and I know they're juggling all sorts of things. They've really done a lot and gone out of their way to really work on that community for us. So we really appreciate it.
I'd just like to thank the families for their consistent support, and I'd like to, acknowledge my teachers who are teaching remotely. They're doing a fantastic job. I don't think that there's any question that they're going above and beyond what's asked of them on a daily basis to make a positive difference in the lives of kids. They're our kids. We love them. They're part of our school, and we want to make sure that even though we're going through a global pandemic and they're learning at home, that they're cared about and that they are part of Maple West.
Okay, next, we would like to recognize Williamsville South ninth grader Theo Poulin, who competed against more than 2,300 contestants to win the C-SPAN Student Camp Competition Grand Prize with his documentary Trust Fall. Beginning as a fifth grader at Mill Middle School and under the guidance of Mr. Randy Gamero, Theo has developed into a gifted storyteller, first creating video announcements for the middle school. He honed his craft throughout his time at Mill and finished third overall as an eighth grader in the competition last year. He has continued his documentary work, winning this prestigious national award. The prompt for this year's C-SPAN competition was, explore the issues you want the president and new Congress to address in 2021. Theo chose restoring trust in government and details that in his 6-minute award-winning documentary, Trust Fall. Theo's documentary will air nationally on C-SPAN on Wednesday, April 21st, 2021. Congratulations, Theo, and here is a look at his amazing accomplishment.
Almost all of the major issues that I've thought about would at least be made better, if not solved, if the government was more trusted. Not to say that we need to just decide to blindly trust the government, but that the government has to make themselves more trustworthy. So as I started doing more research into this, I realized that this was really a big issue. Americans don't trust their government. Let's back up. The American experiment is one built on successes and failures. In order to get out of this pandemic, to achieve racial justice, to try to reunite a fractured nation, we need to hear the truth, even when, especially when, that truth is that the path ahead is going to be long and full of struggle. Once we come to expect the truth, even hard truth, we the people can place our trust in a better future, our American future.
Just wanted to call and congratulate you today because you're our 2021 Grand Prize winner.
Wait, really?
Really?
Congratulations, David.
Congratulations, mate.
I'm speechless. Oh my gosh, thank you guys so much. When they told me I won grand prize, I was truly amazed, right? Like, and I think that was a very raw reaction that they captured there.
We found out in the afternoon, and I think that whole afternoon and evening, we just kept like looking at each other like, is this real?
Yeah, no.
But it is really wonderful because when we sent it off, I remember the deadline was Inauguration Day, and Theo submitted it right before the inauguration. It's this big moment for our country, and I remember being so proud of the video and being like, off you go. And to see where it's come and how resonant it is right now, we're so proud.
I just think that one of the reasons that Theo's documentary is so special this year is just the power of the message. Just on a small scale and on a larger scale, that to have a child say that we need to restore trust in our institutions is extremely powerful, and I just think it resonated really well.
I mean, it's super impressive at that age to represent yourself and be able to win this competition was just amazing. I mean, I think, what's most impressive watching the video is just the level of talent that he has as a ninth grader is off the charts. We can't wait to see, what else he's able to do in his years here at South.
Congratulations, Theo. And we have one more. Finally, tonight, it's with great pleasure to share that the district has earned the honor as one of the best communities for music education award. While it has been a challenging year, our incredible music department has found new, creative, and innovative ways to deliver instruction to our students. We're also proud to share that on Monday, the new music facilities at Williamsville East and North, which were part of the 2018 Music Capital Project, are complete and now open. Williamsville South's new music addition will be ready in the fall. Let's take a look.
So we're really excited that we've won the Best Communities for Music Education Award. It's sponsored by the NAM Foundation, the National Association of Music Merchants. And what it does is recognizes districts who have complete community support for music, not only from a district standpoint, from a funding standpoint, but from a community standpoint. Are there opportunities in the community for students to perform, to go to watch musical events? It's really about community. And we're really excited that we were able to be recognized for this once again. This is our 12th year in a row that we've won it, and it's really exciting to get this recognition. Williamsville North Edition has opened. Williamsville East Edition has opened. Williamsville South is still in the process of construction. We anticipate that to be available over the summer, so students will have access to that one in the fall. These spaces were designed with sound first. There were acoustical consultants who were on the project from the very beginning. What you see is a product of what you want to hear. It really serves the music that well. And when you're in an ensemble and you're singing or you're playing your instrument, when you can hear that sound surround you, it's so exciting, it's so exhilarating.
It's just fantastic, and it just gives you an overall sense of just like, I don't know if this is weird, but comfort. It's just really nice knowing that we have our own room now. When you all play together, it's really unlike anything you can ever like do in your life, just like playing with a full orchestra, and just a piece that you've all worked so hard on is a really amazing experience.
It smells like a new car in there, and like it just has a lot more space. It's not as crowded like in the previous room we were in. So I think there's a lot more room to play, and that just gives me the feeling that I think we're gonna get a good practice experience. My reaction just looking at it, I was like, he did a really nice job with it. Like they just did it really quick. They were ahead of schedule from what I could tell. Like they're doing a really good job with it. I'm overall 100% happy with this new space. They did a really good job.
We've always been huge supporters of music in our district. I'm being a district employee for many, many years and a district resident for many, many years. I know how much music means to this community, and to see this come to life just really amplifies that excitement that we all feel, teachers, students, staff members, we all feel the excitement to be able to walk into these new spaces.
All right.
All right.
Congratulations. Great to see those facilities. They look fantastic.
Thank you very much, Dr. McKenna. We will now have our, oh, actually, I'm sorry, I skipped one. Are there any board acknowledgements? All right, we will move on to public expression, which is item 5 on our agenda. And at this time, I'll call on Dr. McClary, our parliamentarian, to review our public expression format.
Thank you, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. Welcome to all who have come to observe this regular board meeting. For policy 1510, the board has set aside 30 minutes for public expression, a time when we invite members of the community to share ideas and concerns with us, and we welcome this opportunity to hear from you. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. You will be signaled with a yellow flag at 2.5 minutes so that you may conclude your remarks. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not be engaging in a dialogue with members of the community this evening. Rest assured, we are listening carefully and we take seriously what you have to say. We also would like to ask that you demonstrate respect for us and for one another by speaking to the issues, giving us ideas and sharing your opinions, but not engaging in any personal attacks. Thank you for your cooperation. And thank you to those who have pre-registered for public expression. At this time, I will call on you. Then please step up to the podium and state your name. Okay. The first person who has registered to speak is Nicole Pohanzik.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Pohanchik, and I'm a district parent of a child in 8th grade and a recent graduate of 2020 from North. I want to remind everyone that the budget vote is coming up Tuesday, May 18th. You have to be at least 18 years old, get those high school seniors out there to vote, U.S. citizen, resident of the West Williamsville Central School District for at least 30 days. You have to bring proof of your ID and residency. You do not need to be a registered voter. You don't need to have be a homeowner. You can rent. And if you don't feel comfortable, you can request an absentee ballot from the district. The budget vote is very important this year. We need to get the incumbents out and get people on the board that want our kids in school and are not controlled by the teachers union. Board members, can you raise your hand if you were supported by the teachers union? All 9 of you should be raising your hand proudly.
Yeah, proudly.
Unfortunately, the board members are controlled by the teachers union. We see this because in the recent transactions that occurred, if you had read the 800-page document by Harris Beecher, you can see that that their findings were really one-sided. This, unfortunately, what happened with the school year this year was all an old grudge against Dr. Marsloff. I do not personally know Dr. Marsloff, and I have to be honest that I've been in the district for 13 years and really didn't pay attention. I lacked knowing anything about the school board. I thought, hey, we're the #1 school district. Why should we bother? They can run themselves. After what happened in September, I started investigating and saw what happened when we first sued Dr. Marsloff. It cost the district almost $1 million. Then it went to the state and found those charges were unfounded. Now, the second lawsuit costs $270 an hour. For what? If you read it, it's one-sided, very one-sided, and
30
left out
seconds.
huge pieces of the puzzle. So I beg everyone to read that 800-page report. We paid $270 an hour for it. And also remind you that people going with the teachers union is not always the right thing. I must admit, I voted for a lot of you thinking that was the right way. We have a great new candidates coming along the way, Terry King, Michael Littman, and Sarup Singh. And I encourage everyone to vote for the new candidates. Thank you.
Our second speaker is Terry King.
I am Terry King. Good evening. My questions are budget related and two in specific, but I know that a lot of time has been spent navigating and really designing, developing the budget. It's been fluid over the last few months with all the uncertainty. But now I notice that there's significant extra funding coming through the federal government in the Stimulus, CARES Act, and the recent act that was voted on. But recently I read that Mike Cornell had stated that there was uncertainty about the state reimbursement formula. As the superintendent or president of the Western New York Superintendent Association, that there was a question mark about whether or not the state formula, the way they allocate funding to the local districts, would remain the same based on the extra federal funding. And I'm just curious if we've given some thought to that when crafting this current budget that's being voted on, and how that may play if that's adjusted and we have to readjust a loss of revenue. The second part of that is in the budget was I also have learned that we're really at the lower end of the pay structure for substitute teachers. And in looking at some of the posted sites recently, I found that I think we're under the lower 20%, more towards the lower 15% of the Western New York district. And I'm hoping that we could take a look at that to really improve those pay rates for those that are looking at teaching here in Williamsville, especially for the substitutes. And that may help eliminate some of the available teachers who are willing to come and work in the district on a substitute basis. And the second part of that is improving the pay structure for the first year, newly hired teachers, that it would become attractive, not just the long-term pay structure in Williamsville, but the pay structure for someone coming fresh out of college and looking to have a career here. And we speak about excellence in education. We certainly want to attract the best. And so I'd ask us to take a hard look at that. So thank you.
There is no other name listed for pre-registration. We have set aside up to 30 minutes for public expression. So if there is anyone else in the community who would like to have 3 minutes to speak, you may step up to the podium and state your name.
Okay, thank you, Dr. McKenna, and thank you to all of our speakers. We are moving on to item 6, which is the review of the Code of Conduct. Dr. McKenna, I will turn it over to you briefly.
At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Scanzuzzo.
Thank you. Thank you. So last month, our committee on the Code of Conduct met to review our Code of Conduct. There were a few changes made, just updates regarding people who were on the committee in the very beginning. Also, there were a couple changes made on page 10, talking about really definitions that we needed to update regarding the transgender and gender the definitions that needed to be updated. So really want to talk to non-binary and genderqueer definitions regarding gender and gender expression are currently updated in the Code of Conduct. Also on page 11, we talk about attendance and student responsibilities. We just wanted to clarify that attending class meant every day unless legally excused on page 11. And then moving towards the back part of the Code of Conduct, we have, with the addition of our administrative teams at all of our buildings now, on page 27, when it came to students who have found to have violated any of the district's Code of Conduct may be subject to the following penalties, either alone or in combination with one another. And we wanted to add our building administrators and not just the building principals. We wanted to expand that to our assistant principals that are now part of all of our administrative teams at the elementary, middle, and high schools. And at this time, I would take any questions, comments, but this is just really a first draft review for the board to take a look at, and hopefully we can have an adoption at the next meeting. Yes.
Could you tell us the district's plan in regards to restorative practices and where that will fall into play with the Code of Conduct, where we're at with strategic planning with our restorative practices?
I think I could address that now, or I could address it later in our presentation. But I'll wait to just kind of, it'll go well with our presentation that's going to be forthcoming.
Excellent.
Yes.
I had the same question, so thank you. But I also wanted just to make a comment that I did appreciate the updates to the gender definition. I think it's a more inclusive definition for members of our community that are in the LGBTQ community. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and the committee was very cognizant of that, and that we really needed to update that particular area based on the development and how that area has kind of expanded. its vocabulary and definitions to encompass and be as inclusive as possible. Thank you. Yep.
I just wanted to share, first of all, thank you for providing us the updates on the code of conduct. It was interesting to me because I sort of looked at it with fresh eyes over the weekend after coming back from a little week away. Some of the things that jumped out at me that I just wanted to mention publicly was that in the opening paragraphs of the code of conduct, it says it's based on the principles of civility, mutual respect, citizenship, character, tolerance, honesty, and integrity. And I'm really proud to see all of that in there as the opening of our code of conduct for our district, because those are character traits that we want to teach our children. And those are also character traits that we as adults need to aim to live by. So I'm very appreciative that that is in there. And I also just wanted to point out that there's also a section that says, unless otherwise indicated, this code applies to all students, school personnel, parents, and other visitors when on school property or attending a school function. And I think that that's really important as well, because there are parts of the code of conduct that speak about bullying, they speak about harassment. Those things are well and clearly defined within the document. But I think it's a good reminder that this is a code for everyone, for the adults, for the students, for the parents, for the visitors, for everyone. And I appreciate that that wording is in there.
You're welcome. Actually, it starts when the kids get on the bus.
Absolutely. The moment they get on the bus. Any other questions for the board? All right, at this time,
Thank you.
we will hold a code of conduct public forum. If you pre-registered for the code of conduct public forum at this time, I will call on you, or Dr. McClure can call on you. Do we have anyone that pre-registered for that portion? All right, so then we'll open it up. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on the code of conduct, whether to ask a question or to give feedback? This can be a student or an adult. All right, I don't see anyone coming forward, so we will move on with our agenda. So we're going on to our consent agenda. I'm going to break out a few items this time instead of putting them all together. I'm going to start with personnel. May I have a motion to approve item 8, personnel? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Mecca, second. Is there any discussion on item 8, personnel? Right, seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously for consent agenda item 8, personnel. And now I will put items 9 and 10 together. May I have a motion, please, to approve consent agenda items 9, business, and 10, special needs and student activities as presented? Mr. Borenstein, thank you. Mrs. Van Slyce is a second. Is there any discussion on those items? Seeing none, all in favor, please. All hands are up. Motion carries unanimously 9-0-0. At this time, having approved our personnel, business items, and special needs and student activities, I would like to welcome Lori Jonas, our newly appointed principal at Mill Middle School, to come join us at the podium. Welcome. It's
Thank
nice
you.
to meet you in person. I saw your YouTube video from your prior district. Please feel free to introduce yourself to us.
Absolutely. So I'm Lori Jonas. I'm really, truly honored to be chosen to be the next leader of Mill. I am born and raised in Western New York, spent the last 6 years in the sunny state of California, and moved back here. I'm bringing a tremendous amount of professional development and experience. I promise that you will be hard spent to find an administrator who loves middle school students more than I do. I feel that that is a tricky age, especially if you've raised one. one. You understand that. And I think that you need a really passionate, exciting principal to take the lead in schools that are middle schools. I am one of those leaders. Williamsville has an excellent reputation, and I am very excited that I was chosen out of many qualified candidates to take the next lead at Mill. So thank you to Dr. McKenna and all that were on the interview panel. I'm extremely excited to get started at Mill.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you. You as well. Thank you. Thank you.
About Ms. Jonas's background, because it's really quite impressive. She's been a principal for 5 years, as she said, from California. Some of the highlights, from her career, she significantly increased student achievement in the school that she was at. In fact, they had the highest graduation rate in the history of the school. They went from being the last graduation in their district to the top graduation rate in their district, and it was very impressive, the improvements that the school made under your leadership. She's also been part of developing social emotional learning programs in the last district that she was in, and that definitely matches our goals and our strategic plan here. She was on the strategic planning committee in her last district as well, and we're embarking on a new strategic planning initiative. So someone who has experience in working and implementing strategic plans was something we felt was very important at this time. She was also on our equity and diversity task force in her last district as well. Another district initiative that we have embraced. And so we're looking forward to, again, working with you and learning from you, because these are initiatives that we're just embarking on as well. And for all of her success in her last year that she was there, she was the middle school principal of the year for the Association of California School Administrators for her entire region. So congratulations. We're proud to have you on board.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I would also like to thank the following retirees for their service to the district. I will read their name, the building that they worked at, and the number of years of service. Anju Pacheco, Maple East, for 30 years of service. Ann Burden, District Office, for 25 years of service. Peter Campagna, Middle School, 18 and a half years of service. Teresa Casey, worked district-wide for 21 years of service. Robert Cooper at Lawrenceville Drive for 29 years of service. And Linda Naples at Dodge Elementary for 14 years of service. Thank you for your service, and please enjoy your retirement. Moving on, we're on item 11. Is there a motion to approve the March 9th regular board meeting minutes? Mrs. Beeger? I think you're abstaining though from that one, right? Because you missed that meeting?
March 9th.
Can I get it?
Apologies.
It's okay. Can't motion if you weren't here for that.
I'm not going to make that one.
Orenstein, thank you. And Mrs. Van Slyce is a second. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Okay, on the motion to approve the March 9th meeting minutes, all in favor? Right, opposed, sorry about that, and abstentions. Thank you. So motion carries 8-0-1. And now to the March 23rd special board meeting minutes. This was our special board meeting and budget work session. May I have a motion to approve those minutes? Mrs. Beeger, I will take that motion this time. Thank you. And Ms. Kasperzak-Bogner is a second. Are there any corrections? Seeing none, all in favor? All hands up. Motion carries 9-0-0. Thank you. Moving on to our president's report. The first item is the community forum. I just want to thank the members of our community who participated in our community forum, which took place on March 23rd after our special board meeting. It was a good opportunity to hear from parents, and I also wish to thank Mrs. Van Slyce and Mrs. Beeger for leading that event. Does anyone else from the board wish to make a comment about the community forum? All right, thank you. We have some board visits coming up, some building visits, I should say. The dates and times for the upcoming school building visits are listed in item 12B. Does anyone wish to change their commitment to attend or not attend at this time? Dr. McCleary.
Unfortunately, I have to change from maybe to no.
Okay, and that's for transit? Transit and East? on next Friday, correct? April
Yes,
20th.
again, I'm sorry, but I can't.
Okay. Any other changes? Is there anyone else that's able to join us that didn't think they could previously? All right, no problem. Does anyone have anything to report on either Erie County Association of School Boards or NISBA for items 12C and D? All right, seeing none, moving on to 12E. Is there a motion to approve the amended 2020-2021 school calendar as presented? Mr. Lemay, thank you. Mrs. Van Slyce is a second. Is there any discussion on that? All right, I'll just point out for anyone that's asking why we're approving this, we're making an adjustment for the Juneteenth holiday, right? Because that was a newly appointed holiday this year, so we had to adjust that in our calendar. All in favor on the approval of the amended calendar? All hands are up, so that equals 900. Thank you. Item F, is there a motion to authorize the district clerk to hire election personnel to facilitate the annual district vote to be held on May 18th, 2021, as presented? Thank you, Mr. Borenstein and Mr. Lemay as a second. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Hands are up, motion carries 900. Are there any questions in regard to the dates on the calendar and board docs for the 2021-2022 school year? This is for the review of the draft Board of Education meeting calendar, item G. Ms. Kasper-Zach-Bogner?
I just wanted to clarify. So originally there was a April 12th regular board meeting and budget adoption that we determined was during spring recess. So we are moving that to April 19th, correct?
That's the way I read it.
That's what I was
Mrs. Carey, is that correct? Okay, I see a thumbs up on that.
Thank you.
And then I also just want to propose, this is not in the draft, but Mrs. Van Zyse had sent out a little poll to get some dates for a retreat. Based on the results of that, Mrs. Van Zyse shared those results with me. July 8th, which is the Thursday, had the most number of votes for a retreat. And the time that was most popular was the 3 to 6 p.m. So I just want to ask all of you to put that date in your calendar if you hope to be on the board next year. And for any candidates who are running, to also put that date in their calendar. So that would be July 8th from 3 to 6 p.m. And that would be for a retreat. So we would have our reorg meeting, and then a few days later, we would have a retreat. All right, any other questions or comments on that? And also a community forum, the consensus from Mrs. Van Slyce's Google poll was that we have 2 community forums. And so I want to propose that we keep the one that's after the budget work session, and that we also choose a fall forum date in October. Any thoughts on that? And Mrs. Van Slyce, I know you said you would perhaps send out something to the board to choose that date. Do you want to speak about that?
Sure. So I gave a couple options, and one was a date in the fall, looking at the end of October or beginning of November. Before I actually send out those dates, I wanted to check with Mrs. Carey to make sure that we don't have any type of conflict with the district calendar. So once I confirm that with Mrs. Carey, I'll send out probably 2 dates. If everyone's okay, I am looking at, I thought maybe the end of October or beginning of November, as it gives our children, our students, time to be in school and, kind of work things out. And then any concerns or things that parents would like to bring it to us makes the most sense, I thought, maybe at that time. Does that sound okay? Does anyone feel we should do something differently?
I support that. I think because hopefully we'll have some homecoming events this coming fall, it might also be good to offer like a Saturday date and also perhaps a weeknight.
Right.
And I also was thinking that we could have, since we're going to have 2 forums, we could maybe have one of them be on Zoom and another one in person, But we can discuss that once we get closer to it. Probably the month before the actual forum, we can take a vote as to whether we want to have it on Zoom. Because I will say that we have had more people in attendance when we have the forum on Zoom, and we definitely want to be able to, have people join us and have it be convenient for them to join us. Which, as a parent of 3, I know it's a lot more convenient to just plug into Zoom because I can pretty much do it anywhere. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for that. Oh, yes. Go ahead, Mr. LeMay.
Yep, I just wanted to make one suggestion when picking the dates, perhaps looking at maybe mid-October, for example, the 16th, because looking at that 23rd, 24th, we have the NYSBA convention that starts up that weekend, and of course, the following weekend is Halloween. So maybe we should look at that mid-October as instead of end of October.
So we'll look at mid-October and then the first maybe weekend in November, and we'll see where everyone lies.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for pointing out the NYSBA convention. I had forgotten about that. So that's really helpful. All right, we're going to move on in our agenda. Mrs. Carey, would you like to provide an update on items 12H and 12I?
Thank you, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. So the report on candidate information. So far to date, there are 2 official candidates, Mr. Sean LeMay and Reverend Terry King. The website will be updated after the ballot number drawing, which is April 20th at 5:30. And that will have the candidate bios and more information regarding the annual vote. So I'll work with Mr. Filipowski on that for getting that tab up there. And both agenda items have that board information in there for running for the board and Erie County Board of Elections, the list of registered voters, how I get it. It's from the Board of Elections. And then there are links to that database and the street directory to verify you're a qualified voter in the district. Any questions, you can email me or call me. All that information's in board docs and will be on the website. So application for the absentee ballot, you can email me or call me and I'll get that application for absentee ballot for you. My contact information and more info is in board docs, agenda item 12I. And any updates, again, will be posted on the website and I'll work with Mr. Filipowski on that. Any questions?
Go ahead, Mr. Bornstein.
Mr. Bornstein.
Thank you. Thanks for that update. Just to be a little bit more specific about the vote. My understanding that it will be an in-person vote this year. However, there is an option to be absentee ballots. Is that correct at this point?
There is an option for you to request an absentee ballot.
To request, but generally, unlike last year, it's going to be an in-person vote.
In-person vote, correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just one follow-up question, Mr. Mortensen had my first question. Is there a deadline to request the absentee ballot?
Yes, by mail, it's 5 days before.
Okay.
To get it back to me in the mail. And then if you're in person requesting it, you can come in person and request a ballot and you can fill it out at district office and turn it back in.
Okay.
The absentee ballots aren't open until close of polls that
At the
evening.
end.
So we might be working until whatever hours to get everyone all the absentee ballots picked and turned over. And because if someone came to vote in person and they filled out an absentee ballot, we would have to destroy the absentee ballot that they filled out because they came in person to vote. So we have our checks and balances in
There's
place.
checks and balances for that,
Yes.
so no one's voting twice. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So item J, Erie One BOCES will present its tentative administrative capital and program budgets for 2021-2022 to the members of the boards of education of the 19 component school districts for their review. And this document is in your board docs packet. The dates for the annual meeting and BOCES vote are listed. The Erie One BOCES vote will be held on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021 at 6 p.m. until 6:15 p.m. The vote will be held remote for board members to attend and the public will be able to view a live stream. This will be a real quick one. We'll just do it on Zoom since we're only voting on one thing. All right, any questions on that? All right. We are moving on to item 13, and Dr. McKenna, I turn it over to you for items 13A and B, our community update and our strategic planning update.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. And the community update today, we're going to start with the plan to pivot review. I know we sent out correspondence to parents just yesterday about the plan. And what we'd like to do tonight is review the plan briefly here tonight and summarize the main parts of the plan. But also the complete plan is posted on our website for anyone who needs to refer to it to get any detailed, further detailed information. So here's a summary of the key elements for our plan to pivot. These are the first 3 steps, as you can see on this slide, and we've already completed these first 3. We sent out our survey back a few weeks ago. We had developed our committees at the middle, high school, and elementary level. We also went down to building level as well. We've done all of this. We've moved our furniture. We've got our plan for our schools and staging each classroom right now at 3 feet. And we reviewed the data from the informational survey, and we shared that data with our community as well. Here we are right now in the summary of the plan to pivot on steps 4, 5, and 6. And these are the ones that we're doing concurrently right now. We're informing the staff and families of the changes to the state guidance. That's what we did. Actually, when it first came out on Friday at 5:30, we immediately got something out that the guidance had changed. And then we said we'd get it out first thing Monday morning, and we did. We made sure that we got the plan out first thing so that our community was aware of the changes. We sent out an instructional survey to families asking them to choose an instructional model for the remainder of the year. This is important data because this is how we know exactly how many students are going to be in each classroom in each school. This is what is critically important for our planning at this point in time. So I'd like to encourage anyone that's out there, if you have not filled out the survey yet, to please do so. We have the survey open till tomorrow at noon. If anyone has any questions about the model, please call the principal of your school. We've been referring everyone to the principals because they're the ones that know how things impact each of their individual buildings. Step 6, that's what we're going to be doing then, reconfiguring our classrooms based on the survey. And then we're going to share all the survey results. And next week, we have meetings set next Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday. On Monday, we'll be sharing results and getting feedback from the community as from our district perspective. And then on Tuesday, the elementary schools are going to be doing their presentations and getting feedback. And then on Wednesday, the middle school, high schools will be doing the same. And then after we receive all the feedback, after next Wednesday, we'll take next Thursday, Friday, make sure we fine tune the plan and begin implementation the following Monday on April 26th. Here's some key things from the guidance that we thought was important for everyone. According to the guidance, districts are to ensure that equity in education and responsible parties should prioritize efforts to return all students to in-person instruction. And we felt that this was important because this was in the guidance multiple times, how important it is for districts to begin this process. And they talked about a phase-in process also in the guidance, and that's exactly what we started to do. So the district is addressing the guidance with the phased-in approach, beginning with the elementary. We also, one of the questions that's come up too is, why are we not offering hybrid? And this is one of the main reasons, is because the guidance is encouraging districts to start phasing in, to start making steps in this direction. So that's what we're doing. We're following the guidance and implementing our plan. We also believe that this is part of our beliefs. It's in the best interest of students to be in person as much as possible. So the implementation for the plan to pivot will be moving quite quickly over the next couple of weeks. But first, we wanted to talk about the transmission rates, because that impacts what happens over these next few weeks. And right now, it's definitely impacting what's happening in our middle school and high school. So under the new guidance, if you're in a zone that's high, then you can't come back until you go down to one of these lower zones. So what does a high zone mean? If you have 100 plus cases per 100,000 in a 7-day period, you would be in a high transmission zone. We wanted to point that out because we are in a high risk transmission zone right now in Western New York. The last data that we just pulled, and 410, so this was brand new. We just got just today. Good job, Mr. Filipowski. It's up to 370 per 10,000 right now. So you can see that we're way into the high risk transmission zone right now. So what that impacts is the guidance states that elementary can come back, but middle school and high school cannot if you're in the high risk zone. So right now we're moving forward with the elementary school coming in on April 26th. And what we're going to have to do is just monitor to see the transmission rate over the next period of time to see when it comes down to when middle school and high school can start going in as well. So the district implementing the plan is in full phase right now. And what we're going to be doing is our goal is April 26th. But again, we said it's subject to change based on those transmission rates. We wanted to make sure that everybody is aware of that. We monitor these rates every day. We're in touch with the Erie County Department of Health every day. And so if for some reason they change, we'll notify the public as soon as possible. But as of today, right now, we're beginning the process for our elementary schools, and we're moving forward with middle school, high school, but we have to pause until that transmission rate goes down. Here's the plan to pivot timeline. April 12th, yesterday, we sent out the instructional model to families. Today, we're doing our presentation at the Board of Education. April 14th, tomorrow, the instructional model surveys, they're due at 12 noon. April 15th and 16th, we're going to take the survey, we're going to disaggregate all the data, we're going to break it down to the classroom level. And then we'll be working with our principals in each school to make sure that all of the spaces and all of the schools are appropriately spaced so that all of our students can return. April 19th, that's next Monday, that's when the district presentation will be, when we will be giving an overview of the results of that survey, and we'll be getting community feedback from our community as well. And we'll be sharing information about that later this week. On April 20th, as I mentioned before, that's when the elementary presentations will be going on, and they'll be getting feedback from our elementary parents. And then April 21st, our middle school and high schools will be giving their presentations and getting feedback from their parents as well. And then April 22nd and 23rd, we're going to take all the feedback, we're going to take all the data, and we're going to make any final changes and adjustments to the plan. And April 26th, 2021, the implementation of the plan begins. And at this time, we'll be beginning with our elementary students K through 4. Again, this is just a review of what I just said. Elementary is ready to go, and we're phasing that in on Monday, April 26th, unless the guidance changes. And the middle school and high school, they're going to continue in their current high flex model at this time. At the middle and high schools, students will return 4 days in person when the conditions allow. So that's where we are with our middle school and high schools. And again, we'll be monitoring this on a daily basis. So that's a brief review of our plan to pivot. And what I'd like to say to everybody too is please make sure that you look at our website now, because the detailed plan to pivot is posted. It's quite lengthy, but you'll see that all of those steps are in there, and it should give you an enormous amount of information regarding the plan. But also, I do want to tell everyone that if you have any specific questions regarding your child's school, regarding their classrooms, please reach out to the building principals. They are ready to take your calls, and I know they already have been quite busy since we launched the plan yesterday. And now the social emotional, the next phase, we have the social emotional.
Can I pause you on just on that piece
Sure.
right there? Just on the plan to pivot, I just want to make a brief statement.
Sure.
First of all, I want to thank you, Dr. McKenna, and I want to acknowledge our district leadership team and our building principals, because many of these individuals were on spring recess last week. And as you know, the guidance came out during the recess on a Friday evening. And Dr. McKenna, including members of the leadership team, several of our principals, they worked Friday night, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, people were calling in from airports. You know, it's the level of time and effort where many districts just said, okay, it came out on Friday, we'll deal with it on Monday. It didn't happen here in Williamsville. And here in Williamsville, as soon as it came out, you were on your way to go home and you're like, oh, I guess I'm working late. And so I just want to acknowledge that first off.
we had been working on our plan to pivot for many weeks, and as you could tell from our weekly updates that we'd been giving, we'd been trying to keep the public informed along the way. So when the guidance came out, we were ready to pivot. We had our plan pretty much more than drafted. We were ready to go. So we were able to move, quickly and expeditiously. And yeah, we still had to work a lot, and I give the team a lot of credit over the weekend and a lot of support from many people who made it happen.
Thank you.
But again, we worked hard, we worked diligently because we know that this is in the best interest of our students. And that's why the time, energy, and effort is certainly something that's worth putting in. And we'll continue until the plan to pivot comes to fruition and we get our kids back in safely into our classrooms.
I appreciate that. And I know the board appreciates it as well. I also want to say that the board collectively and individually would like to be able to address the district's reopening plan here this evening. We are however, unable to do so due to pending litigation. We will not be able to speak or comment on the plan at this time, but we do want to remind you that the district's plan to pivot is set out on the district's website, as Dr. McKenna has indicated. And now if you'd like to go on to the social emotional portion of your.
Yes, we've been also working very hard in our social emotional learning programs. And I'd like to call Mr. Scanzuzzo, I know, and Dr. Debate. I'm going to go through part of this and then I'm going to turn it over to them at one point in time through this presentation. Is Dr. Debate still here? There she is. Yeah. But I will get us started and then I will turn it over to those who have been working tirelessly and diligently to make sure that our students have, I would say, one of the most outstanding overall plans that I've ever seen to deliver social emotional support to our students. So the first thing I'll start off with is the strategies that we're using in our schools right now. We embrace what I call a toolbox approach. There's not any one way to work with children because there's not a one-size-fits-all student. Students are not cookie cutters. So we have to have various approaches and eclectic approaches. We've actually referred to it as a mosaic of approaches because that's how our students are. And we know that we feel our teachers need a toolbox at their disposal to try to help any problem and issue that comes up. And we're trying every day to equip our teachers as much as they possibly can be. The foundation of the programs and practices that we started this back actually, not just this year. This is what started really just a few years ago. Really when we started down training with restorative practices. There's a couple of, we call these baseline strategies that all of our teachers need to know and at least have a tier 1 level of knowledge. And most have a much more extensive knowledge base than that. But our check-ins and community circles are really important. Every day, I know those of you out there who have children in our schools, like I do, the daily check-ins and regular check-ins are very important. It's when our teachers reach out and see each day how our children are feeling, how they're doing, and really check their emotional well-being, a quick check. And the building circles are also, the community circles are very important because they literally get in circles and they talk about how they're feeling and the thoughts and emotions that they're going through. And the teachers have been trained to look for signs and to address those signs as quickly as possible. So this is some really excellent training that we've been embracing for the last couple of years. And then this year, we really put a full court press on to make sure that it's being implemented in our buildings consistently. Some other key programs that we've been training our staff in is one is the CASTLE program, the Collaborative Academic Social Emotional Learning Program. And this is where we teach our teachers about the 5 key competencies for social emotional learning. There's self-awareness, self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. This is key training because what this does is it helps our teachers be able to embed into their daily lessons these concepts. And it helps them to teach our kids, and it helps them to look for signs in kids again as well. So we've done a lot of training in this, and we're going to be continuing the CASTLE program in our district as well. This year, I'm very proud to say that we teamed up with the University of Buffalo and with the Institute on Trauma and Trauma-Informed Care. And we've done a great deal of workshops with the University of Buffalo. These have been very informative. Again, helping our teachers understand trauma, how important it is not to ever look away from trauma, but to make sure that it gets treated, make sure that it gets addressed, and make sure that if how to get our children linked with the proper services to help and support them through any trauma or difficulty that they may have. So this relationship with the University of Buffalo this year has been great, and we're going to continue to keep cultivating this as we move forward. Another relationship that we've had for multiple years, but it's really come into play this past year quite a bit, is with the Alberti Center for Bullying Abuse at the University of Buffalo as well. And this year we entered into it's a grant that we did. It's a program, it's called NABIT, and it's Norms and Bystander Intervention Training. And what we're doing with that is we're training our students and our staff as well to look for signs. So students are actually looking and helping and supporting other students. And they're finding ways to, if they see students in need, to be able to reach out and get support for their fellow students as well. We're doing this program right now at East, and it's going to be moving to North and to South, beginning at the end of this year, but implementation next year in those schools. So very exciting program, and it's helping quite a bit. And again, I give Dr. Dabate and Mr. Scanzuzo a lot of kudos for working so cooperatively with the University of Buffalo. They have been an incredible partner through this time. And we are the only district, right, in Western New York that we know of that's participating in this project at this time.
We're helping create it even.
That's right, and working with them to create it. So it shows you the innovative staff that we have and the progressive staff that we have to make sure that our kids are getting the very best services. Restorative practices, we've been doing this now. This is the third year, and it's really, we wanted to be into the third year of our pilot this year, but COVID kind of put things on pause. So we're really going to be embracing our third year next year. And that's really going through the third phase of that program is restorative justice. And I know I'll let Dr. Dabate talk about that in just a minute. Some more things, some structures that we have in our schools that we think are outstanding and giving support to not only our students, but our staff and our community. We have child study teams in all of our buildings. We have an extensive RTI program that we have in our district. Our academic intervention services program is, I think, absolutely outstanding. We are constantly assessing students, assessing their needs, getting them support, not only social emotionally, but academically as well. Because we know when students are feeling stress academically, that's something that lends to greater problems and social emotional difficulties down the road. So we're really trying hard to make sure that we address all the academic needs that our students have as well. Our shared decision-making district and building programs we have, and we have wellness programs in every school. We have a wellness council. We have our guidance plan, of course, our code of conduct, which we looked at today, and the committee was just reviewing, and an extensive professional development catalog with many professional learning opportunities. And we do have a very extensive catalog and with many social emotional offerings for our staff. And that's where we're working with the University of Buffalo and many other programs as well to make sure our staff is getting the best professional development possible. And I want to know too, when you can see how many of our team that we have on board to help and support our students. We're very proud of the team and the investment that we've made in our team. We have 14 psychologists in our district, 15 social workers, 14 counselors at the middle school, 15.5 counselors at our high school, and we have the 20 assistant principals who are now part of our wellness teams. They're part of our SSTs. They are working hand in hand with our social workers. They've become critical support through this process of all our social emotional programs. So this team has really been invaluable through this process, and they work as a team. Yes, we have certain people assigned to different buildings, but if there's needs that they have to triage and go to a certain school or a certain situation, they work together. So we can use them in various places throughout the district as necessary. So I wanted to let you know too that we do have a strong team that's ready to help throughout the entire district. And now this is the toolbox basically that I was talking about before. And Dr. Dabate, I'll turn it over to you to talk about this comprehensive program.
So this is just a sampling of both our prevention and intervention. So everything that Dr. McKenna was referring to is really, it's comprehensive and it's integrated. So the community circles and the check-ins provide for us the basis for helping students feel that they are in a predictable, connected, safe environment. Am I doing something wrong?
Yeah, fine, you're doing great.
Okay. Anyways, so this chart just identifies again our prevention intervention model. So if you think about the professional staff and the tool box or toolkit resources that Dr. McKenna was referring to, this is where we are equipping our teachers and our mental health staff with the skills that they need to be able to address what the students bring to us each day. So we do have a tremendous opportunity for our teachers to find what speaks to them, where they need more knowledge, and to be able to get it. So if, for example, under our professional catalog, we've done culturally responsive training this year. We've done the trauma with the UB Institute of Trauma. We've done abuse intervention and prevention, Aaron's Law is a new law. And so we had staff able to take that training in the fall and early winter. And then this spring, we will be bringing some of this to our students as they are supposed to be trained in these prevention and intervention strategies for understanding, when they may be not safe and who to go to help them. Inclusivity, we have done our LGBT plus training, Q training for a lot of our staff, and it's at different levels too. We have foundational information and then have a training for staff that want that has a little bit more nuts and bolts to it. Just the terminology that we were talking about before in the code of conduct is important, but it's also important for our staff and our faculty to know how to support students. What happens if you sometimes make mistakes? You make a mistake, and how do you apologize for that and walk back and make sure that we are sending that message that all are included, even if, because the terminology sometimes is awkward to us, that we can recover from that and maintain that respect and civility that we talked about even in our code of conduct. So important. And that is so dear and to our hearts. And Dr. McKenna was talking about the strong team that we have with our mental health folks. Yeah, they work across the buildings, but we also meet on a regular basis so that we are all kind of informed about what's happening, and somebody has a strategy that they've used, then somebody else can pick up on that strategy. So we're sharing ideas all the time. So that's just I could go on all day to talk about the professional development catalog. The other part of that is for our students as well is the prevention programs that we have for them, those peer-to-peer interactions that are so vital for our students to be able to learn and work with their peers. We've seen it through the student government kind of opportunities that our students have had. We've started some social emotional learning workshops with our students that are in student government, and they are so hungry for this kind of opportunity. It's been such a pleasure to work with them, to really see how dedicated they really are to these issues of diversity and inclusivity and taking care of each other. So Sources of Strength, NABIT, these are all peer-to-peer programs that talk about students supporting each other. And we have a lot of adults, but we need students hear things before the adults do.
Mhm.
And so students need to help each other and then bring us adults in to further support. So that's that third column. That's all the wellness opportunities our students have. This year has been abbreviated and lots of changes and things, but our schools have done Unity Days, Spirit Weeks, they do community circles, they have social skills programs.
So those things are still happening for remote students and for in-person students. And then the middle part is really starts with intervention, but it's also prevention as well. And that's what our mental health staff is doing. We are continuing to do our one-to-one counseling, our teacher consultations, our presentations for whole classrooms around social emotional learning, supporting teachers that maybe don't feel comfortable or didn't feel comfortable doing a community circles, having our social workers or counselors or psychologists go in and run the community circle with the teacher, and then pass the baton off to that teacher to be able to continue using this model. So it's really important. Our staff has been wonderful. They've delivered supplies, they've delivered food to students' homes, they've met with students in driveways, in the back patio to do the counseling, to do the support. The family engagement has been big, especially at the beginning of this pandemic. Our teachers, as well as our mental health folks, were really spending a lot of time with parents, trying to help them through the struggles that they were facing. So they have stepped it up, and everybody's working really hard. Everybody's really tired, but we got to just keep going, don't we? So we will. So I don't know if there's anything else for that, but the restorative justice piece. I just wanted to kind of mention that Tom Cavanaugh he's out of the University of Colorado, and he came and in June 2019, we had a great opportunity. We had probably about 70 staff members trained with him around restorative practices, and we were just getting ready to start to launch that in the 1920 school year, and so there was that little bit of a hiccup. But the premise of that is really, it's about relationships, and if you break a relationship, it's about mending the relationship, and that's why the community building circles are so important, because if you break a norm of that community, then you bring that apology, if you will, to the community, to the circle, and to restore, and to understand that we all make mistakes, and we can be forgiven, and we can go on from that. So that's the basic premises of the restorative justice program. So we'll be working on that more next year.
Thank you, Dr.
The rest of
Debate.
this year too.
And I've been in circles with Dr. Debate, and they're very powerful and very important and very meaningful. Mr. Scanzuzzo? Oh,
Yeah.
we went by.
And
There
just
you
to
go.
add on to what Dr. Debate said, I'd like to just also share with you that our school resource officers play an integral role
Yes.
in the visits that were taking place with our social workers, our psychologists, and reaching out to students who are not engaged. The first time, second time, the third time, just really trying to make them a part of our community and reach out, and knowing that the supports are there from that aspect as well. So it's really been a large endeavor that we've been able to reach out to families of kids that are struggling during this time, and families as well. This was not easy. There isn't a manual for anybody to follow, and unfortunately, it's happening. But we're doing the best we can to serve our community as best as we can. Moving forward, our SCL plan is embedded within our strategic plan, so it's going to be one of the 3 areas of concern that the strategic plan is going to be focusing on. So as far as mission, vision, and goals, just the SEL and social emotional learning is going to be part of that. We talk about the eclectic menu of strategies, supports, and best practices that we offer at all of our schools, just in a variety of ways. So there isn't one fits all menu. It's really what buildings feel comfortable doing, and they've adopted methodologies that they're using within their buildings to support their kids and families. We're happy about that. And, overall, it's supporting mental health, it's supporting behavior, and it's supporting academics. And, this is really kind of, where we are. We brought all stakeholders together to unite under a common cause. And that's kind of, where we're at. And we know that there's going to be much more work to be done in the fall knowing that, and we hoping, you knock on wood, that kids do come back, that there's going to be some peeling the layers of the onion to get kids transitioning back to what was normal. And there may be some considerations and some issues that they have to deal with before they can move on. And we're going to be there to help them support that. So just just knowing that that's going to be at the forefront and that's going to be real is something that we're going to be working towards, arming our wellness committees and our mental health staff on being able to support kids in that endeavor.
We've been having,
And teachers as well.
As we're planning on coming back, I know we've been talking, with the mental health staff and our teachers to make sure that they're prepared, for even an early return right now. But I know we just mentioned, next fall, we've already been talking with Dr. Balin about this as as we begin next year, those staff development days, we want to dedicate to these practices and these, to make sure we have baseline understanding of our teachers of these very, very important skills. And another thing I'd like to say too, we're doing a lot in diversity that melds with this. I look at the culturally responsive teaching and the culturally responsive classroom work that we've been doing this year. Even though it's diversity, it is absolutely SEL as well. And again, we mentioned being part of the SEED program, the Seeking Educational Equity and Diversity, to be part of that national project. We're also looking forward to melding that as part of this. And I believe we talked about our first steps is getting our assistant principals on board so that they become the key people in all of the buildings. So we start to make sure that gets spread out throughout all 13 buildings as well. So a lot of really exciting things that are happening in this area. We could talk about this for hours. We're talking as we go through this, but we're excited about it, and we know that we've got a lot more to go, but we've got a good plan moving forward, and we're going to make sure that we do everything in our power to make sure our kids, our staff, and our families get the most support as possible. I don't know if there's any questions maybe that people might have.
Thank you. First of all, Mr. Scanzuso and Dr. Debate, thank you so much for this presentation. I did have a question on, understanding that the restorative practices implementation has been going on for a few years. When that implementation is complete, do you anticipate any changes to the code of conduct as a result of that? And if so, could you speak to that for a few moments?
Sure. So right now, the restorative practices endeavor is happening at High Middle School. And I hate to forecast what may or may not be happening, and if this is what the district is going to adopt, because we have buildings, like we say, using eclectic, models of PBIS and restorative practices and community circles and just, bits and pieces of all this. And if restorative practices is the model that we are going to adopt and train to ensure that all of our stakeholders, staff are buying into this and are going to follow it to the model of the protocols, the guidance, and have it embedded within our district, then the code of conduct will definitely have to be taken a look at, because the two have to meld with one another, right? And so there's definite ways that restorative practices takes a look at discipline. And the code of conduct is our umbrella that oversees our guiding practices for student expectations. And that encompasses not just every day in school, but extracurricular, sports, and the whole gamut. So having said that, we would definitely have to take a look at the code of conduct so that it reflects and mirrors what our practices are taking place and what our adoption of our new policies and practices are within our buildings.
And that would happen through the wellness committee when you review it. It's the wellness committee, correct, that reviews the code of conduct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's just important to know that the restorative practices then is another option in the toolbox, if you will, because we will still have to have a progressive discipline, because there could be those situations where students aren't connected to the community and do not want to make reparations in the community. And so we may have to then fall back and use our progressive discipline, because that forcing someone to do a restorative practice as a consequence could cause more harm than good.
I'm so glad you spoke to that, because it's not a this or that.
No, and it's not a just let's turn the switch and
right.
it's on. It's something that it's a buy-in piece, It's something that is done over years, really, implemented in the curriculum on a daily basis.
And I can just say, as a high middle parent, high middle has done such a fantastic job of implementing this, but also explaining it to parents. If parents do attend the PTA meetings, it's been explained multiple times. And the point that you just mentioned, it's not a replacement for a discipline, because you have to be, as a student, willing to acknowledge and take responsibility for your role and your behavior in order for the restorative practice to work. And sometimes that's not the case. So I greatly appreciate all of your comments and your time and energy for being here tonight. Does anyone else from the board wish to speak on this? Mrs. Beeger.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I want to express my appreciation also for all that's been shared. And it's interesting because in many presentations, we see what's coming or what's working at. And this one in particular really hit home for me because so many of the examples that you were sharing, wellness activities, options, things of this nature, I've seen mirrored in my own children. And I have children at 3 different levels. So I've heard my middle schooler talk about circles, and it's just a practice and something that he's grown accustomed to, which warms my heart because I have prior training in restorative practices. So I not only know the benefit, but to know that my child is part of this and experiencing this makes me really proud of our district. But also the kindness initiative that was mentioned. I have a 6-year-old right now who's writing thank you notes to people, friends, family members, because that's what's happening in his classroom. And that's something that has really grown and I haven't always seen. So as a board member, but also just sharing as a parent that these initiatives that you've been working on with your staff, I really see through the eyes of my children as a parent. So thank you for all the work that's happening, for the committees that are doing this good work, and I look forward to seeing this continue in our future. Thank you.
And I'd like to just publicly thank all the teachers who adopted this methodology, because this is another layer, of their planning for their kids. And it's not just about delivering a high level of curriculum. It's embedding these important, what we feel as very important, topics that kids are going to walk away from to become part of who they are as they grow up, and especially at the elementary buildings, and laying that foundation that it continues on in the middle and high schools as well. So it's just I'm proud of that, and I'm happy that our teachers have really adopted this and have kind of run with it.
Thank you. Any other feedback from the board? Mrs. Van Slyce, followed by Mr. Biscaglia.
So I do want to make one comment with that. You beat me to it. I think first of all, what the district continues to do with our SLE, it is extremely hard. We all know this. We have been thrown into a situation that no one has ever experienced before. And the exhaustion from everyone is out there. We know that we have a community that's divided. What I love is that our focus in the district remains on the students. The staff, our administrators, our teachers are working tirelessly, as well as the board and the entire district, leadership and all, because we are focused on those students. And we see the growth in them. We know it's not ideal, but we see the growth, and I do appreciate what the staff is doing. They have thrown off their hats and said, yes, we're in this situation. We're already dealing with multiple things, but they have what looks to be, they've jumped in the ring, especially to embrace the social emotional learning piece. And we do see it with the students because they remain positive, optimistic, and they're trying. They're trying to make the best of it. And we as parents are often reminded kindness goes a long way, and we're the best role models for them. So I think the district has also done a great job teaching the community and our own parents what that looks like with social emotional. So there's a lot of gratitude that we have. So thank you.
Mr. Biscaglia?
I was going to have a question, but it's now a comment. I'm glad to hear that restorative practices will be implemented, well, hopefully, in the code of conduct, not only just for the day-to-day schools, but the extracurriculars. I know my district that I'm in has restorative practice, and we've implemented it in extracurriculars and things like that. And it really helps develop a sense of community outside of the school as well, the school day, whether it's with sports teams or music. So I was happy to hear that. That was going to be one of my questions. And I was also, I like hearing about, I believe it was the abbreviation NIBA, the students getting.
Nabbit.
I should know
Nabbit.
it because I was on vacation with a family member. My nephew from Williamsville East was one of the students picked. I should know the abbreviation, I guess. But when he was going over it with me, he was excited to explain what it was. And, I was happy to hear it. It made me excited when I was on vacation, when I should be not thinking about things like this. But I think that's a nice piece, because when you have students recognizing and working with other students, it's a big difference. It's a huge impact when you see your peers helping each other out rather than even a teacher sometimes. So that's something I'm excited that I heard about. So.
Yeah, and that endeavor is through Dr. Nickerson, Amanda
Yes.
Nickerson.
Yep.
So it's fantastic, and she's been great. And we were doing some work with, I wrote her name down here a second, Kim Morrow, who we had to kind of suspend some of our work because of the COVID-19. She's really somebody who specializes in anxiety, and she was doing some work with our staff members, very well received. Just a no-nonsense kind of way about it. So that, coupled with what we're doing with the Institute of Trauma and Trauma-Informed Care, there are some really high-flying people who are working with our staff members who live and breathe this every day. And, I'm just proud to say that, we're doing everything we can in our power to bring experts in to work with our staff members to get our students and themselves in a better place.
And I think it's just maybe important, you just reminded me that the UB's Trauma Institute is working with us on trauma-informed educational practices. So it kind of is hard when you hear trauma-informed care, that it's really the educational practices that we are really focusing on to be trauma-informed, so that teachers know how to respond versus to react to some things that are maybe from a child's traumatic past that are happening in the classroom.
Absolutely, thank you. So Dr. McKenna, I'm going to ask you to go quickly through the testing update, but I also want to request that all the PowerPoints from this get uploaded into Board Docs. I don't
Absolutely.
see them there right now, and the slide that had the 3 columns, I think would be a tremendous resource for us to be able to go back to in the future.
Yep, absolutely. And
we're on testing update.
we'll go quickly through the testing update. Dr. Balin, who's been working very hard with our testing protocols and procedures right now, is going to bring us up to date on where we are.
Good evening, everyone. Great to see all of you. Just quickly for testing, and just like to remind our parents that everything that's in our PowerPoint, they did receive in our letters. We sent letters home regarding 3 through 8 testing at the end of March, on March 25th, and we sent letters home regarding the Regents exams on April 1st. So much of what they'll see here, they have seen in the letters. So that will be familiar to them. Just quickly, we did try to put a couple of slides together, and they're subject specific. The first being English language arts and identifying within the established window for New York State the dates that the testing will take place. We worked very hard with our building principals and our district administrators to look at our instructional models and when students are in school, and keeping in mind too that our students who are 100% remote and in our remote option also have the ability to come into our buildings for testing purposes. So of course we did invite all of our families to partake in a couple of surveys to let us know what their intention was regarding their children. And we thank them very much for doing that. It's essential in terms of our planning. So on our first slide, our ELA is represented, our second with math. You'll notice too, there's a couple of dates that are assigned as makeup assessment dates. Not all of them have to be utilized, but we did want to make sure that we communicated that there are also options for makeups in the event that the original initial administration date is not something that a student is present for. So there are some allocated makeup assessments as well. As far as New York State Science, that one will take place in June. The state did extend the window. Originally it was just a few days. Now it is a week long. Just as a reminder, our grades 4 and 8 are those that are tested for science. The construct of the tests have changed significantly. So we did put a slide together. Again, this was in the letter itself as to what the participation regarding the assessment looks like, as well as the tests themselves. Just as a reminder, again, assessments can only be administered in the buildings. They cannot be administered remotely. Again, we did reach out to families, and thank you so much to our families because they did an amazing job responding to the survey. If for some reason a family was unable to respond, please reach out directly to the school. They will assist you. So that option is certainly available as well. Just to synthesize, now with ELA and math specifically, each subject only has one session. As you remember from the past, there were multiple testing dates and multiple parts. That's no longer the case. The number of questions has been reduced. It'll take about an hour, we're estimating, for the test to be completed. They are still untimed, but because there are no written components for ELA or math, we do not believe that it will really take much longer than that. Really, it's a multiple choice construct that we're looking at. And with science, there are some short answer questions. There are no practical science labs or performance tests to be given. So that's an important note. Regents exams, we did note the dates there. Those are driven by the state. They're established dates. They're on a singular date. Again, any student who's enrolled in those courses, as long as they are passing the course, is eligible for an exemption. We have an extensive FAQ that we put out. There's about 25 questions that are on there. We will add to those as more questions are received, but we did, of course, send a notice to parents on April 1st, and the responses are due by the 23rd. So as always with testing, if there are any questions, please certainly let your building principal or your school know. They're happy to assist in any way that they can. Thanks.
Dr. Allen, I
Yep.
have
Sure.
actually two questions. One is about AP exams. I know that
Yep.
wasn't addressed on here, but at the North PTA meeting last night, I think, and I need you to just sort of clarify it, are AP exams also being offered remotely?
It depends on the exam. That's driven by the college board. They had a whole matrix of what exam was offered in one format, so it actually depended on the test. Not all exams were available in each of the formats that were presented. So once again, the schools had to do quite a bit of work in planning and looking at who was enrolled in the various courses and then reach out to families accordingly. But the college board actually offered a chart, if you will, that actually showed what the exams were and what formats they were available. So it varied by test.
Because I do recall last year there being substantial issues
There
with
were.
students taking the AP exam and then trying to submit it and having it
Exactly.
be completely
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
So would it be your recommendation that if they're going to take the AP exam that they come in to take it?
So what we did is we actually preferred, and if you look at, and this may have been part of North's presentation, I'm not certain, but a lot of our conversation at the high school level is actually centered around where the assessments are in person. That was our delivery method. And that is why, is because unfortunately last year, and they were not problems on districts ends, the college board had tremendous technology issues to the extent that some tests were actually lost or not able to be recovered. And that's after students work multiple hours to enter their information, which is really just beyond words, right? So I would definitely say where possible in person, and that really showed in the way we mapped it out is where we saw that there was an in-person administration. That is the way that we attempted to proceed. And we do understand there are situations where that is not always possible, but in person was really, that was one of the driving factors of some of the decision making around the planning. Is we knew that there were huge issues last year and we don't want to see that repeated.
Right.
They have assured districts it's better, but again, we don't know that
Thank you
for certain.
that. I have a follow-up though. Like if I'm a parent and my child's scheduled to take 2 AP exams this year, which is my reality, will I receive an email asking if my child's going in school or doing it remotely, or it will just be a
I believe what the schools did is we settled on a preferred delivery method. Again, most of them are in person. There were very few that actually fell into more of a remote category, but the principals and counselors and staff at the school were actually the ones reaching out to families. So there really wasn't a choice per se.
Okay, so I didn't miss an email. I
No,
just
you did
didn't
not.
receive
No,
anything.
no.
Okay.
And that's a good question because we reached out with the regents and we reached out with 3rd grade. It was a little bit different with College Board because of some of the factors I just described. But no, there was no selection to be made in this case. No.
Okay, thank you. And
Sure.
then just regarding the standardized tests and the Regents exams, it's somewhat of a loaded question.
Sure.
What will the district do with the data that comes from this year's exam results?
That's a great question. And some of that is yet to be answered because the state will ask us for data that has not been asked of yet. Last year, they Actually, much of it is downloaded in terms of the exemption component. So that was part of what had to be reported last year. But frankly, their systems are not at a point now where anything has been shared with districts as far as specific reporting. So I believe that's one of their next steps, is to tell us what it is that they're going to need from us. But from a student standpoint, this is one thing I do want to emphasize is it is completely a decision of the family and the student as to whether or not they're going to engage with the assessment. If for some reason the result is not what the student or the parent desires, there is still an option to exercise the exemption after the score has been received. The score will not count as part of the grade, and I know that's been a conversation we've had, as all of you are aware. But that was a cognizant decision on our part after much discussion, is that would not be in the best interest of students at this point. So we want to make sure it's as low risk as possible. But as far as reporting, they are basically constructing their reporting as time goes on, and it's been ever changing. So I don't think we'll know the totality of that answer until we get a little bit closer to the time that they're given, and even after the fact. So I will be happy to share any updates that we receive on that front with the board and with the public when we have more information to share.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Any follow-up questions? Mrs. Van Syfe?
So you answered a couple of things
Okay.
that, just for clarification, that many parents maybe are still talking about. So unlike AP, Regents examinations are not offered remotely. They must be in person, correct?
That is correct. That's as of a New York State Education Department.
And someone that's
requirement.
remote can still choose to come in
Absolutely.
and actually take
That's
those.
correct. Whether or not you're in one instructional model or another is not a determining factor. The choice was presented to all students and families, regardless of the model.
And I'm glad to hear, yesterday we were on with the North PTSA, and glad to hear you basically reiterate that all 3 high schools will be following the same thing, that if a student so chooses to take the exam of the 4 that are being offered, they have that choice. The grade will not be counted. So they will not be penalized in any way, whether they take it or not.
They will not.
And even if they take it and they're not maybe happy with that grade, they can go with the E on their transcript.
Yes, that's
Okay,
correct.
Which is
And
excellent.
the only other thing I would add beyond that is in future administrations, as long as they have not received a diploma, they can actually take the exam again. As you know, New York State allows retakes for a higher grade, or if they want to challenge themselves and see if, they want to do it over again, that is fine as well. As long as they've not received a diploma, they can certainly do that too. One other important note is all of the August Regents exams have already been canceled. Those will not take place. So we're really looking at next school year and beyond. But yeah, our FAQ is really informational. It's quite long, so we apologize for that. But we wanted to make sure that there's so many questions when you get into, requirements and how it impacts, diplomas and different types of things. It's very comprehensive. So I would say to parents, we did provide the link in the letter to please look at that and review that, because it answers a lot of the questions that may be out there for families. And we try to put everything up front because we know that these decisions are not easy ones to make, but they do come with low risk. So I don't think there's a wrong decision, even if a student does decide to take it. Certainly, there are actions that one can take after the fact if they're not pleased, as long as they're passing the course. So that's one piece I know that is definitely part of New York State's plan, is they want to make sure that the course piece is taken care of before any exemptions are offered. But, we're in a different time and place. So, we just want to make sure, again, the communication is important. So hopefully we've provided a wealth of information. And if anyone has any questions that are still unanswered, to please reach out to us. We're happy to answer any questions.
And I do love that each time we log into WITS, things are coming right to us. What do you want? In person 5 days, remote, transportation. The next day I got on, boom. Is your child willing? It's got the student's name. Is your child going to take this? Yes or no? So it really shows the amount of work that the district and the leadership is doing to gain this feedback in the preparation and planning. So that's very, very impressive.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. And we did really labor over, especially the Regents one, as to when to release that. But knowing that we still had a few weeks in the current quarter or semester was really important that we got the information out as soon as possible. So we appreciate everybody bearing with there is a lot coming, but again, ask questions if anyone has anything. We're welcome to have those conversations. So thanks for that.
you.
Thank you. And I agree. The communication has been outstanding. And even from the building level, one of the math teachers that teaches the Algebra 1 sent out a lengthy email explaining that there are no consequences or negative repercussions for choosing the exemption. It was very clearly explained. And I very much appreciated that as a parent.
Well, thank you very much. It's been definitely a all hands on deck effort. We appreciate everybody's participation and contributions to all of that. It's been great.
And I know we didn't go very quickly through the testing update, but it is really
I tried.
important information. So we will now go into our strategic planning phase.
This will be very quick. But first, I want to say thank you to Dr. Balin and her team. They have worked tirelessly and really great job. Thank you. Strategic planning, we've been moving right along. In our last meeting, what we did is we got common templates all set for goal setting and action plan development. And we began writing district goals. That's where we are right now. The next phase, we're going to meet again in a couple of weeks with the Strategic Planning Committee, and we're going to begin the building structures right now. It's time to start assembling the building team. So that's what we're going to be doing in our next meeting with the Strategic Planning team in a couple of weeks. So that was a quick one because, but we're moving right along and making good progress with the strategic plan.
All right, thank you. So we're moving on to item 14, and we're going to start with our budget. 14A, and here comes Mr. Matarski.
Good evening, everyone. It has been a very challenging budget development process this year. However, I think what you see where we're winding up is in a very good place, not only for the 21-22 year, but for the future. So what I'm going to do is just go briefly over what we're doing today, what we're at, and it's going to provide a quick budget summary. Everyone will want to know about what's happened with New York State aid, with federal aid, just a brief review of our program continuation expenses for the community, and then going into tax rate information, and then a budget notice and a property tax report card, which are required to be approved, and a final summary. So the major takeaway, I think, tonight is that we're continuing all of our programs, and essentially everything's maintained, all the extracurriculars, all the non-mandatory programs. You saw that list that happened in January with all those items and that we were all not wanting to touch. Well, we don't have to touch any of them. Where there's no budget reductions here in this budget. And it also considers long-range planning as applicable to the 22-23 and 23-24 year, as you're going to be seeing shortly. So federal aid and state aid. We received our report from New York State and after the legislature approved the budget. And you can see that we have a budget allocation now of $44,669,999. That's going to be the aid coming from New York State. And then there's an amount in there for federal aid of $3,036,162. And that provides us with the $47.5 million revenue budget on that end. What I wanted to highlight, though, is the information below, which is showing how some of that federal aid is going to be allocated to future years. And that really is key for us to maintain program in the future. I will say, as you're going to see on the next slide, that we don't have all the information on the federal revenues at this point. However, all budgets are developed with some flexibility. And if you look at our revenue budget, you'll see part of our flexibility is we have fund balance and reserve appropriations in it, $9.7 million. That allows us flexibility on that end, and there are similar flexibilities on the expenditure side. So again, the allocation has been done on these federal funds per the information we've received currently. The CRRSA is the items that was approved in December. Those funds can be used in 21-22 and 22-23. The American Rescue Plan is a multi-year plan. And again, those funds can be used in 23-24, 24-25, actually also 22-23, as well as 21-22. So it really is a wide scope for those plans. As far as what's going forward in the future, we really don't know when COVID's going to truly end. So we have to be aware that the economic recovery, whether it be local or New York State, might be challenging still. But again, that's why the federal aid is planned in the way it is. And that's also why we have the other flexibility pieces in our budget. The one thing I did want to point out is if you look at the end, there's a long list of items that federal funds can be used for. Some of it's requiring for the ability to address student learning items that may have happened during COVID. But this one item is stating that other activities that are not necessary to maintain the operation and continuity of services in local education agencies and continuing to employ existing staff to the local educational agency. That's a key item. That was the last bullet point of the report we received on the federal dollars, because that allows us to pay salary and benefits. So this is not new. This is just really more for the community. We have about a $5.8 million increase this year. You can see the majority of it is for our salary, contracted salary increases, and that results in a 2.92% budget increase. Here's the point that we wanted to address is that we have the revenue budget is balanced with the expense budget. We have a balanced budget, and the reasons for that from our last meeting is that the elimination of the STAR reduction, an $8.6 million reduction. You can see that we were very concerned about that, and that is now been restored by the new budget. We also had the elimination of the governor's proposal on services aid. And when that was eliminated, not only will it allow those aids to continue in the future, it also was an increase to what we were provided by the governor by $681,962. And then the foundation aid, another major point, about $4 million increase, which all helps us. And as I mentioned already, we have flexibility on the revenue side for federal dollars. So just looking at the tax rate, again, this is just an update. At a $150,000 house, a basic STAR subsidy is $55.21. Enhanced would be $39.19. The estimated tax rate's $18.04, but that's using last year's numbers, equalization rate, and assessed value. And historically, those assessed values do go up, so the rate will go down. And most importantly, because we are under the tax cap, all of our residents will definitely receive the STAR refunds or credits based on what program they're on. This is in small type, but I think if you look at it on the actual screens that you have, you'll see that this is what the budget notice looks like. The only items I'm going to point here are the key items. It's required by the state for us to complete. That has to be submitted to the state. And the key items here is it really is going over what your tax levy is and the fact that you are under the tax cap. So that's what those columns are. It does show you the comparison between last year and this year. And then this piece also shows you what a contingent budget would look like. Just so everyone understands, the contingent budget situation would be if you cannot have a tax levy increase, so it's zero. You're seeing that the amount is still an increase in our budget because of the additional federal aid and state aid. So that's why that's not an equal $3.3 million reduction on each side. It's less than that. In addition, you see we're also required by law to do a three-part budget, which is the program component, capital, and administrative. And our program component, which it should be, is the highest amount, represents about 78%, which is really where you want to be. The property tax report card has some similar information. I'm not going to go through these pieces because it's showing the same thing. It's showing a little bit of enrollment on the first part. But the piece that's a little bit different on this report is it shows you what your fund balance and what your estimates are for your reserves. And so these are all estimates, and it's looking for not where we're going to end up this year. It's looking for the following fiscal year. And the major changes you're going to see is our capital reserve. About $10 million of that is looking to be allocated to our security project. That was what was in the proposition last June. And so we expect that project to start work sometime next year in 22, in the spring probably, and continue. So those dollars will be allocated to that project. Additionally, the other items are pretty constant, not a lot of change. The major increase would be the sub-reserve for TRS, which I'm expecting to be able to put some additional funds in at the end of next year. So with that, it comes to conclusion of this very unique and difficult budget development process. We had a lot of support from all of you, from Dr. McKenna, from all my colleagues, and I think we got to a good place. Our next item, aside from this meeting when we do the approval, is the May 6th meeting where we do the annual budget hearing, which is again required by law, PTSA candidates night, and then the budget vote is on, and school board election is on May 18th.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matursky. And I want to personally thank you. As soon as the state budget came through, you immediately provided information to the board. And like the numbers, just like you just worked them right in. And we know that that budget came late from the state. So thank you for all of this information. We certainly have been on a little bit of a roller coaster ride this year with the budget. Any questions or comments from the board? Mr. Biscaglia.
Just one quick question. So looking at the budget, I know I, try to read, and obviously politics change every year, but as far as I understood, the foundational aid will be given back within the next 3 years, or what districts should have gotten over the last 10 years or so. Am I correct? And things could change, but.
Yeah, you are correct. It's a 3-year implementation period. And the way it is supposed to work is 50% was supposed to come this year of what your amount is, another 50% next year, and then you should be at 100%.
Okay.
There are a number of different formulas, as you can kind of think there always are. So it depends upon where we fall within those formulas, but that is exactly the way it should work.
But as of now, it's looking like districts will be getting that foundational aid.
Yes.
For the next one. That's good to hear.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear that. That was my question.
Mr. Lemay.
Can I just follow up on that a little bit there? So are they back paying the quote unquote owed amount of the foundation aid, or is this just moving forward? It's going to be fully funded.
My understanding is it's just moving forward to be fully funded.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And yes, thank you for quite the roller coaster ride this year. I'd say a lot more than just a little one.
That was a good question, Mr. Lemay. I think it's important, and I know, Dr. McConnell, you sent out a statement about this, but we really had our State Senator Ed Rath and our Assemblywoman Karen McMahon. They were both very helpful to our district and to the entire state of New York in getting those education dollars back, and especially with the foundation aid and the issue with the STAR rebate. So bipartisan efforts on that front, and we're very thankful as a district. So on that note, may I please have a motion to resolve to approve the proposed 2021-2022 budget and tax report card? Dr. McClary, thank you. And Mr. Borenstein, second. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All hands are up. That means motion carries 9-0-0. Dr. McKenna, do you wish to make any comments at this time for our public and invite them to come out and vote to support our budget?
Well, absolutely. Of course, come out, everyone, to support our budget. And I do want to thank the team that worked on the budget, this year, for not only this year putting forth a very sound financial plan, but a plan for the next 3 years, which I think is really important for our district. When we look at the long-term financial and fiscal well-being and health of our district, this is a very important budget this year. And it was a lot of teamwork, and a lot of people worked on this. And I thank Mr. Matursky for his leadership through this process as well, and the entire leadership team. We had many discussions about this budget, and in the end, it really worked out incredibly well. And I thank the board as well, because there's a lot of input from our Board of Education regarding this budget as well. So it was a real team approach, and I'm very proud of it because it sets our district up for success for the next 3 years. And please come out and vote.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to lump a few items together for the sake of time. May I have a motion to resolve to approve item 14B, modification of daycare contract, 14C, recommendation for external audit firm, 14D, annual internal audit risk assessment report, E, to approve the property tax settlement and transfer amount from tax reserve, and 14F, the budget transfers. So may I have a motion, please, to approve items 14B, C, D, E, and F? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Mr. Lemay, second. Is there any discussion on any of those items? We'll start with Mr. Mecca, followed by Mr. Lemay.
I would like to keep 14B separate. It carries a large dollar amount that we're sacrificing as a school district and as stewards of the financial resources of the taxpayers of Williamsville School District. I don't want to lump that up in with everything else and vote on those things as a group.
All right, so I can amend that then and we can pull out B. So why don't we start with item B then, and I will redo that motion to just have a motion then to approve item 14B, the modification of the daycare contract. Is there a motion, approval for that motion? Oh, Mrs. Van Zyse. And may I have a second? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. And discussion, Mr. Mecca, do you want to continue the discussion on that?
Sure, thanks. So, I mean, we all view the world through different lenses, and as a person with humanity, I believe that everyone deserves some amount of grace through this pandemic, including people who own businesses. However, we're agreeing, if we vote in the affirmative on this, to sacrifice almost $200,000 in income. In my role as a good steward of the finances of the district, I'm having trouble coming to terms with this. I'd be willing to hear what other people have to say, but when I read this, I initially thought, how can I support this?
All right, any further comments from the board? Dr. McConnell, or I'm sorry, Mrs. Beeger, go ahead.
That's okay. I just to follow up, I believe the reason for the decrease is because of it mentions the 87 decrease in student tuition. So I think the contractual fee just sort of mirrors the decrease in student tuition. But I appreciate you bringing up your concern because I hear what you're saying. I'm wondering if we can hear more from district leadership to help explain.
Mr. Matursky, please. I know you know
the
details of this.
Yes, this is certainly a difficult one. When the Just for Kids program came to us to talk about this, they have not had a program this year for the most part. I do not know, and I'm not going to say this as a fact, but whether they even have the financial resources to pay the full fee if it would be required. They did share with me that their unemployment expense this year has been hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're responsible for that. So they have a lot of other COVID-related expenses. What I tried to work out with them was not just an idea that they would be given this as a freebie. That is why the contract is extended for 1 year, so that we actually get that full amount back and from them in a regular year. So that was not something they offered initially. That was a negotiated item to try and make us whole with the fee amounts that is in that contract. And just giving you some history going way back to when we did not have the Just for Kids program, we had the Y program. The Y program provided us about $5,500 for the entire year. This is significantly increased. So I granted that's over 10 years ago, but I think that's a little bit relevance here, because if we were to still have had that and not had this type of a contract, we would not have this type of funds coming in. So again, it's a partnership situation. It's not an easy thing to do, but we are all trying to get through this together.
Thank you, Mr. Matusky, for that explanation. Any further discussion on behalf of the board? Let's start with Mr. Maka and we'll go down the table.
Sorry, just one more concern then. And I'm moved by your comments, Mr. Matursky, and it's helping me to see it in a different light. I want to be 100% sure that we're not putting ourselves in a situation where this could be considered a gift of public funds.
Do you want to respond to that, Mr. Matusky?
A gift of public funds would be if it's an expenditure that we're providing. On the revenue side, it's a contract. So we have a contract with them. If the board doesn't choose to approve that, then they're required by law to fulfill the contract amount. I think it would then become a legal issue, to be honest, because then the question becomes, they have not been provided the spaces to provide the program. Now you're going back through that situation. And I don't know where it would end up. I'll just say that becomes a legal issue.
All right, Mrs. Van Zyl.
So my stance is a little different. I saw this as a one-time, as it's explained here, and I was quite pleased. So, Mr. Matursky, I would like to, number one, thank you for the incredible work you do with the budget. We all know how reputable you are, and once again, you came through. Sorry that it was so much stress and anxiety this year, but with this, I'm quite pleased. They weren't able to actually provide their service due to COVID, and like we said, they're a partnership. So I looked at it as the district was really helping them, continuing a partnership. I think our parents would be very upset if we did not continue this partnership. I think it's very beneficial for many, many families. So I think it's excellent. And knowing that next year things will be up and rolling and we continue where we were at, I really was very happy with it.
Mr. Biscaglia?
Mr. Mecca, I understand your feelings. I thought the same thing when I first read it. Ms. Van Zyl kind of stole some of my thunder. As a parent of an elementary student, I know how many families use Just for Kids. And I think it would be a disservice to the families if next year we're back to normal, knock on wood. And this wasn't available to them for, if everyone's back to work full time, if this wasn't available, I think it would be kind of a shock and difficult for families. My question previously was going to actually kind of be on what Mr. Mecca said, as long, and reading over this, as long as it's a 1-year thing, I'm okay with it. I would be very fearful of dropping it totally, and hearing what you had to say about, they might not be able to fund it, and they didn't have the opportunity. I have a hard time going against this. So,
Thank you, Mr. Biscaglia. All right, I think we're ready to take a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried 900. May I have a motion then to approve items 14C, D, E, and F? Mr. Lemay, thank you, followed by Mr. Borenstein as a second. Any discussion on those items? Mr. Lemay.
A few questions here for district, especially when it comes to servers and networking and stuff like that from the internal audit assessment report. I see in the report that we're still running Windows Servers 2012, and I know support cycle for that's running out pretty soon. I'm just concerned. I want to make sure that we're on a trajectory to get those out of our system, and also for the audit for next year. How I read that report, and I just want to get confirmation that they're going to again re-audit us on our IT infrastructure again next year. Is that correct?
First of all, I'll address your last question. Yes, every year we do really a cyber audit, which is done by Fried Maxick also. And they also look at these same items. The risk assessment piece is updated every single year on all the items in the report. So what they do in addition is if there is anything that's written up as a question, they review it in detail. So when you read the report, you'll see that they even included a section from what they looked at last year. Mm-hmm. And so that will definitely be done again by them as they go through their normal process next year. In addition, and going back to the Windows, we are updating items. We do it in concert with Erie One BOCES because that's where we are buying our licenses from. So yeah, the infrastructure, and we actually are working on some other things internally to try and create you are all aware of the second fiber path that we're bringing here to all the buildings as well as here. Our plan is also to bring in a backup server room here. And so that is also going to help us in the future.
Excellent, excellent. And I'm happy to hear the annual audit. I mean, cybersecurity and IT security is changing literally on a daily basis. So I'm glad to see that we're going to keep a constant audit with that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? All hands are up. Motion carries 900. Item 15, under liaison reports, Mrs. Carey, I just want to point out that there's a few PTSA meetings going on this week. Thursday, I know Dodge has one, and I'm not able to attend that due to superintendent interviews.
I have similar conflict on Thursday for high middle PTSA as well.
Right?
I have a conflict too.
Go ahead, Crystal. I couldn't hear you. Go ahead.
I'm trying to remember which school it was. Oh, it was Maple East. I have a conflict with on Thursday.
Okay, Mr. LeMay, followed by Dr. McClary.
Yeah, there's a delegate assembly meeting on that Thursday as well. I've already let Erie County Association of School Boards know that I won't be
Okay.
in attendance. So
And me,
And I
I
remember that being an issue when we set that date. Okay, perfect. And just as a reminder to board members, if you are not able to make a PTA meeting, please make sure that you're communicating with the PTA presidents at the school to let them know that you won't be in attendance. Are there any legislative items to discuss? We've got a new budget from the state level, so we're good for that. I do not see any items for 17 or 18. Dr. McKenna, we are on item 19, our facility update.
Again, I'll turn it over to Mr. Matursky for our facility update.
Just a little bit of information on that. You saw Mr. Russo's information earlier on the music wing. All that really is there are a number of pictures of both east and north that happened last week. So just to show you a little bit more of what the spaces look like, and I know you'll be visiting them shortly, and you'll see for yourself what they look like.
Thank you, and they are beautiful. We enjoyed the visit at North, and I'm looking forward to the visit at East coming up. Mr. Bornstein.
Speaking of the music project, I just want to recognize the fact that we're going to be hosting some of the larger music organizations in our region on Friday, April 30th in the afternoon, the Buffalo Philharmonic, the Amherst Symphony, and others, to show off the crown jewel of our music program, the 3 facilities. And so to me, this is not just something that we should be proud of internally. This is something that we should be proud of for our community. And so to the extent that Dr. McKenna and I can work on making this a big deal in our extended community, that's a great thing.
Well, this is an extraordinary project, and we're very proud of it. And any way that we can let this community know, what these facilities are, I think it's a good thing. And if there's ways that we can even maybe work with them, I think there's some ways that in the future that would be very beneficial as well.
Sure. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from board members regarding district facilities? All right, may I have a motion, please, to resolve to approve the bid awards for the 2021 repair reserve work as presented? Mr. Bornstein, thank you. Mr. Mecca is a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Mr. LeMay had to leave the room. Motion carries 800. Item 21, does anyone have any matter to discuss under committee of the whole? All right, seeing none. We will now be going into our second executive session. May I have a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting and recess into executive session to continue the discussion on collective negotiations? Mrs. Van Zyst, thank you. And Mrs. Beeger, second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carried 8-0-0. And we will now recess. Thank you.
Thank you.